Reading with your kids.
Bonjour, hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, ciao, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jadley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts, in the shadow of the Great Blue Hills. We are so excited that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcasts, including the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, and so many more. Our guest today is coming to us from Halifax in Nova Scotia, Canada. Her name is Melissa Marie Keeping, and she is here to celebrate Griffin in the Spring. Hey, before our guest comes in, we gave a sneak preview of the Solve It for Kids podcast here on Reading with Your Kids, and it was so popular, it's like spun off into its own thing. And my buddy, our dean of all things STEM and STEAM, Jennifer Swanson, is here to tell us a little bit about what's going on with this great new podcast. Hey, Jennifer, what's up?
Hi, Jed. Oh, I am so excited about our new podcast. We've been getting some great reviews. Everybody wants to find out what's going on and meet and listen to some of our scientists and engineers. We have done how do you map an underwater forest?
Yeah.
We have done how do you cut a person in half safely, of course.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We have talked about improving your connection with water by going on a water walk, and we have watched Vanessa Brantley Newton create illustrations that come to life.
I took a water walk with my amazing niece. We had such a great time. I didn't fall into the water, but it was really, really fun. And I love the fact that all of our guests are giving our wonderful listeners challenges, really fun challenges that they can do together as a family. And that's so cool. Hey, tell everybody where they can find Solve It for Kids, because it's not on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. It's its own thing.
So please, if you want to keep listening, go over to iTunes and Apple Podcasts and subscribe. And you can download all 4 of the first episodes that we have, plus listen to all the new ones we have coming out. You can also find on Stitcher Radio and, of course, through our website, solveitforkids.com.
Jennifer, thanks so much. Thanks for letting me be part of this awesome, awesome, awesome podcast.
Well, we make a great STEM team, don't you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, join us over at solveitforkids.com. Joining us right now from one of my favorite places in the entire world, Halifax, in the beautiful province of Nova Scotia in Canada. She is the author of a brand new picture book called Griffin in the Spring. Please welcome to the show, Melissa Marie Keeping. Melissa, how are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm really excited to have you on, if for no other reason than to have shared some stories of my times in Nova Scotia with you. It's always fun reminiscing on the different trips that I've had up to your beautiful hometown.
I hope that you come back again soon so you have more stories to tell.
And I was really, I didn't know the first time I went up there, but there's a beautiful connection between Halifax and Boston. Every year, the people of Halifax and Nova Scotia send down this absolutely beautiful Christmas tree, and it is the official Christmas tree in Boston, and it sits in the middle of the city and is beautifully decorated. And for a long time, I thought it was just a PR stunt, something to get people, come on up to Nova Scotia, we got beautiful trees, come on up. But there isn't. There's this real deep connection and a beautiful reason behind that. This is a silly question, but you're familiar with that connection, right?
Absolutely. You guys came in and saved our butts after the Halifax explosion.
Yeah, back in, was it the early 1900s? Was it 1918, something like that?
I should know this, but I definitely don't know it off the top of my head.
but there was this, it was during World War I. There was a couple of munition ships in Halifax Harbor, and they exploded, and it literally leveled most of the city.
Yes, yeah, it was quite traumatic, and a train coming in, and yeah, quite the story.
But one of the beautiful things is that and again, it happened in the middle of winter, and for all of you listening in LA, winter in Halifax is a little bit different. It's kind of chilly. And as I remember reading, that was a particularly rough winter. And so people in Boston did come together to send up food and clothing and money and help. And I think ever since then, Boston, New England, and the Maritime provinces have always had this beautiful connection and beautiful friendship. And I think it's unique throughout the world. And I really cherish that.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, especially with the States kind of feeling like our big brother, it's nice that the area that I'm from has such a strong connection.
Yeah. So tell us all about Griffin in the Spring, please.
Well, it is my brand new children's book. It's kind of a fun, rhymey story, the kind that, kids want you to read 20 times in a row. And hopefully that won't be super painful for the parents.
Absolutely not.
I've kind of taken this great, big, fierce mythological creature and made him much more friendly and palatable so that children can kind of have a creature to walk them into their journey towards mythology.
Yeah. So tell us about the griffin. The griffin, it's a beautiful kind of hybrid bird and mammal, and tell us all about it for those few folks who don't know what a griffin is.
Yeah, so he is a hybrid. He is a hybrid between a lion. He has the kind of body of a lion with the big tail, and an eagle. He has the big talons and the beak and the feathers and the wings of an eagle. And he originated in Greek mythology. But nowadays you can see him kind of throughout other kind of pop culture references and stuff too.
Mm-hmm. And now when you put that in your mind, and it's a neat, we've seen the images in all sorts of different places. But if you imagine that creature actually living, that would be a pretty fearsome, terrifying creature to encounter somewhere, I imagine.
I would think so. He makes me kind of think of like a polar bear or something. Like you just don't want to cross that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So tell us about the story we'll be reading.
So he is in the spring. It's kind of about him emerging from his den for the first kind of glimpse of spring, and he flies with some birds, and a spring shower ends up bringing him back down, but he's happy to have gotten out. There's some beautiful illustrations by Clearwood Iswai that depict kind of the changing weather that we see here in Nova Scotia in the spring so much. It can turn on a dime. And there's some beautiful seagulls, which are also very prominent in Nova Scotia, especially along the shoreline. So it's definitely got a Nova Scotia vibe to the pictures, and a nice kind of feel that I think a lot of people who live up north feel when you can finally feel the sun on your face again.
Yeah, that is a special moment, isn't it?
It really is, and it's something I think that goes even deeper. I know a lot of people deal with seasonal depression, and it's kind of that feeling of getting back on your feet once the sun starts to shine again.
Yeah. What inspired you to write children's books?
Well, I'm a mom. I have 4 children of my own, and I also work in an elementary school, so I love to write anything, but this just really felt like home for me right now.
Yeah, neat. Now, what do your kids think about the fact that their mom is a children's author?
They're lapping it up right now. We're doing unboxings together and kind of making art for it together and having a blast with it. I went into one of my daughter's classes and got to read the story to her classmates, and so they're having a lot of fun with it, and they just keep, dreaming big for me, which is wonderful. They say, what comes next? What comes next?
That really is cool. And one of the reasons I started the Reading with Your Kids podcast is, of course, to encourage families to read together because of all the benefits we get from reading that our kids get from reading with us. The vocabulary, learning empathy, developing a love of reading, starting to read and get those reading skills. But I also truly believe that it's the beginning, it's the foundation of a lifelong conversation. And hopefully that when families just have all that love reading together, they decide, I want to cook together, and I want to play sports together, and I want to watch movies and TV together, and I want to do all this stuff together. And it's really exciting that your family is taking this author journey with you.
It definitely is. I mean, books have been a part of their life since day one. We've always read together, and so they've kind of been my guinea pigs. I'll come up with an idea for a story, and I'll try it out on them, and they're my biggest critics and my biggest supporters.
Yeah. Did you always dream of writing children's books?
I definitely always dreamed of writing. I think I started writing with the idea that I wanted to become an author when I was in elementary school. It's always been what I wanted to do. Not necessarily children's books in particular, and I'd still love to branch out from that eventually, but I think when you're kind of in mom mode, it just comes really naturally to want to cater to your children because their needs are so prominent in your thoughts all the time, even when you're being creative.
That's true. And I don't think we often take time to think about it and be aware of it, that as parents of little kids in middle school, kids in high school, adult kids, almost all of our waking thoughts are really focused on them and their well-being.
Absolutely, yeah. And so when I get into my creative space, sometimes I still write, towards adults, but I find even that I have kind of a knack to slip parenting in there and kind of the emotions that I feel as a parent. They're just kind of always on my mind.
Yeah. One of the things I was just, and you have to excuse me, Melissa, that people who listen to the show all the time understand that I have during these conversations, I have these flashes of different things. And sometimes they make sense and sometimes they don't. But as you were speaking about your kids and being, dreaming of being a writer when you were younger, I just had this flash. We had a chance when we were up in Nova Scotia last, my beautiful wife and I had a chance to visit your fairly new public library in downtown Halifax.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's beautiful.
It really is. And I don't know about you, but I know Boston has this, the main branch of the Boston Public Library is like a monument to reading. The original building itself was this absolutely gorgeous building with columns, and then they added an addition to it, which was, a very different style, very modern, but still it had this, it was, you get the feeling that this was a treasury of something very precious and important. And that's the same on a smaller scale thing that I felt when I was looking at the library in Halifax. And it's obvious that one of the things that the folks in Boston and folks in Halifax share is this idea that books are a treasure and something to be really appreciated.
Yeah, I definitely get that feeling. As far as this library goes, it's got so many great opportunities happening within it. There's recording studios and just things that I never thought that we would see in a library around here. And they have great festivals there, like Word on the Street, which caters to both writers and readers. And it's just wonderful what they're doing with it. And I definitely get the vibe from the people of Halifax that books are exciting and still very much celebrated. And I was kind of worried that was starting to disappear a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you have, are you somebody who has a love of mythology and all of that?
I definitely am. I have loved it since I was little, and I think it ties in so much to horror and to pop culture. And I just like anything that makes me feel creative and inspired, and so many of the stories from mythology make me feel that way.
Do you have a favorite myth or character other than the Griffin that you really feel inspired by?
Well, I've written quite a few more stories that I hope to eventually have out there. And I mean, I've written about the dragon and the phoenix and the jackalope, and all of those characters from different mythologies are so neat.
You know, you are the person, I'm really happy we have this conversation. Just the other night, my niece and I were talking, and she has a project, and she wants to write about a character who rises up from adversity. And she turned to me and asked, and I said that immediately, before I could even get phoenix out of my mouth, she said, but I don't want to use a phoenix because it's overused. Everybody kind of uses that. Is there another creature in mythology that you can think of that kind of had that similar experience where it was beaten and it just kind of it became stronger after defeat?
Well, obviously, I mean, you were talking about it, and I was like thinking the phoenix. Obviously,
Yeah.
It is, I guess, maybe a little bit overused. It's hard to think of another character that symbolizes that so perfectly, because
Right.
that's really what the phoenix is literally rising from the ashes.
We'll have to work on that. So, you said that you've written some other stories. The first, has this experience been so positive that you're determined to get those books out there into the world?
Absolutely. I mean, my goal, since I was a little girl, was to put my stories out there. And that's really all I want to work towards at this point in my life, is just creating and sharing as many stories as I possibly can.
Why is that important to you?
I've just always felt like I wanted to contribute, and I think that I would contribute in any way that I could to society and to the world, and this is what comes from my heart. It just, sometimes the words just flow out of me so effortlessly. It's just, it's, I think, what I'm meant to contribute to the world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You know, you were mentioning that, your kids are really excited and they're very much involved with you. You mentioned that some of the kids in your daughter's classroom, when you had a chance to read to her, they're really excited. I'm wondering if you've had an opportunity to sit down and to visualize the fact that there are families all over Canada, all over the United States, and possibly all over the world who are going to be snuggled up together reading your book, growing closer together because of the words and the rhymes that you put together. Have you had a chance to think about that? And if you have, what does that make you feel?
Even just hearing you say that, I have tears in my eyes. I mean, it all feels really surreal right now. I've had people, send me pictures and say, I just got your book, and send me a picture of them holding my book, and it's I don't think it'll ever get old. It is incredibly touching. And it's such a surreal experience. When you're first in a relationship, mm-hmm. and you kind of wake up in the morning and your new love is kind of the first thing on your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That is how I feel about my book and about where my career is headed right now. It's this feeling of walking on air, and I just feel so light and so excited.
Well, that's really wonderful. I'm really happy that you've had time to think about that, because I'm hoping that it's really going to inspire you to because writing is hard work, and writing the story is just the start of the hard work, as you're probably experiencing right now. Authors don't realize when they write a story that as soon as it's published, they've become the CEO of their book incorporated, and they're responsible for the unboxing and the shipping and the marketing and the public relations and putting the stamps on the package. And it can be overwhelming, but it sounds like in your case, it's very rewarding.
It is extremely rewarding. I can't wait till I can get to a point in my career where this is my only focus. This is what I'm doing all the time, because I am enjoying every single aspect of it.
Well, that's great. Well, before I ask you where we can find out more about Griffin in the Spring and where we can find it, I just want to take this opportunity to give another plug for Nova Scotia in Halifax. It is such a great place. And there's so many of us here that have been, really, we've been locked down for so long, and we're anxious to get out. The Maritimes, you folks experienced coronavirus, but I think you didn't get hit as hard as Boston and New York City. And once everybody's vaccinated and we can start traveling around again, I really think that Nova Scotia would be a great first trip for a lot of people.
I think so too. We're a pretty friendly bunch, and we've proved ourselves to be a pretty safe bunch during this time. And we pretty much welcome everyone with open arms.
Yeah. Hey, if somebody does go to Nova Scotia, and for my benefit too, and maybe there's something that I haven't seen yet, what is the one must do? What is the one must see if folks go to Nova Scotia?
Oh my gosh, one is impossible. You have to check out Peggy's Cove.
Yes.
Absolutely stunning. And if you have kids, you have to hit the Discovery Center.
Excellent. Well, now it's time to ask you where we can find out more about Melissa Marie Keeping and her beautiful book, Griffin in the Spring.
So you can find me online. I have a website up at www.melissamkeeping.com, and on there you can find all of my links to all of my social media. I'm kind of around everywhere trying to say hi to as many people as possible, so you can come on and talk to me. Locally, my book is available in some really, really great places. Shout out to a couple places in Nova Scotia, Cape and Cowell Comics and Collectibles, which is a beautiful, safe space for everybody. You can find copies of my book there. And in Woozles, which is Canada's oldest children's bookstore, which is super cool. Wow. And as well online, check me out on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. You'll see it kind of sticking up all over the place.
Awesome. And for those of you, and we really encourage folks to support local bookstores. Cape and Cowell Comics sounds like a really neat place. If there's a small indie bookshop in your community that you love, it would be really good for you to pick up the phone and give them a call and say, hey, do you have this book, Griffin in the Spring? I heard the author on this podcast, and I want to check it out. You don't have it? Can you order it for me, please? And in most cases, they can order it. They can get it there in just a couple of days. And the neat thing is, in addition to supporting that small bookstore, you're going to be helping to get Melissa's name out there. That bookstore owner is going to become aware of her, going to look into her, and in the future maybe decide to keep all of her books on their shelves.
Absolutely. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
I also have something to say to the American listeners, because this is super exciting. I was given the opportunity with Goodreads to do a giveaway. So that'll be starting pretty soon. But it is only available to people with American Goodreads accounts. So it's going to be really pushing towards all of the American listeners to log on and enter the giveaway and hopefully win a copy of Griffin in the Spring.
Well, we've had a great time speaking to the author of Griffin in the Spring, Melissa Marie Keeping. Hey, Melissa, thanks so much. I had a blast speaking to you today.
I did too. Thank you so much for having me.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Tony Lee Morrell. He'll be here to celebrate the cat that changed America. It really is a fascinating story. You don't want to miss it. It's a true story, too, and really, really fascinating. Hey, if you are the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love to have you as a guest on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, it does not cost a thing. You don't need to pay anybody to facilitate your appearance on the show. All you need to do is go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Authors Click Here button, scroll on down to Be a Guest, and you'll find out that it really is easy, and we'd love to have you. Hey, I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to thank our friend Melissa Marie Keeping. Be sure to check out Griffin in the Spring. I also want to thank my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan, our wonderful interns, Alexia Brown, Hannah Pat Opoyski. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, I want to thank you. thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking through the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.